If there's one word I'd like to get rid of from the watch critique, watch sort of review lexicon, it's the word should. It consistently gets in the way of us enjoying watches for what they are. It misleads us and just generally makes this hobby less fun. I'll give you an example. When the Tudor Black Bay Pro GMT came out, everyone got fixated on one number, 14.6, or more specifically, 14.6 millimeters. That is the thickness of that watch. And everyone immediately started sort of, frankly, panicking about, is this going to be an unwearable chunk of a watch? Is this going to be a hockey puck on the wrist, flopping about uncontrollably? In retrospect, when you stop and think about it, that's pretty silly. The world is full of 15 plus millimeter watches. For God's sake, every second day, someone releases another 7750 powered automatic chronograph, which is like 15, 16, 17 millimeters thick. We have planet oceans that are 16, 17 millimeters thick, deep seas that are similar thickness. The world is full, as I said, of 15 plus millimeter thick watches that are perfectly comfortable, that are beloved by the community. So the idea that a watch at 14.6 millimeters would be an unwearable hockey puck simply doesn't bear kind of any real scrutiny. Now, yes, you can still cock it up, but the history would tell us that really 14.6 millimeters was always going to be okay for a half decent company like Tudor. Which brings us back to why did we all panic? Why was this frenzy of, is it going to be too big? Why did it even happen? And I think it all comes down to this word should. Because you see, the watch shouldn't be that thick. You don't need 14.6 millimeters to make a GMT watch, even one with 200 meters water resistance. Breitling, Longines, Alpina, Frederic Constant, you name it. There's probably 30 brands that'll give you a watch with comparable kind of statistics at 13 millimeters and below. And we kind of know that in the back of our minds. And we kind of expect that if a brand like Tudor is going to hove into view and play in that space, they're going to achieve the kinds of numbers everyone else is able to achieve. Now, as it turns out, they weren't able to because of choices that they made that in retrospect, everyone, well, I won't say everyone, but most people can live with. Because when they take a deep breath and get past that initial, it should be thinner, and then think about all of the other considerations, everything else that went into that decision to make that watch as thick as it was, then they find themselves prepared to live with it. Maybe it's that they love the idea of an in-house movement. They convince themselves that the only way you're going to get that in-house movement from Tudor is by using that big chunky movement that they've got that they used in the previous GMT. They get comfortable with that. Therefore, they get past that initial, it should be thinner, and they come to love the watch. Maybe they just love the idea. They really, really, really wanted to have a modern homage to the old Rolex 1655. They love the idea that it comes from Tudor, and that was enough to get them past their initial should and get comfortable with the thickness. Maybe it's the anti-magnetism of the Tudor movement that gives them a little bit more security. Maybe it's the power reserve. For whatever reason, when people slow down to think about it, or maybe it's just that Tudor's one of their favorite brands and the idea that Tudor's done something wrong really annoys them. And so after a while, they get past that initial should. But any way you slice it, most people will have ultimately found a way to convince themselves that the watch isn't too thick, or at least is tolerably thick. And that's okay. In fact, it's better than okay. That is great. It is really good that people have got past that initial it should be thinner and given Tudor the opportunity to show that it's a good watch, that it's a worthy watch, that it's a watch we should be considering once you slow down and get past that initial should. But I think the lesson for us is this happens all the time, routinely for watch brands that aren't internet darlings. If Tag had done this, if Breitling had done this, if any number of other kind of not internet darling brands had done it, I suspect that the majority of people would never have allowed themselves to get past that initial should. It should be thinner. It should have an in-house movement. It should be cheaper. It should be insert whatever you want here. Pretty much every watch you look at, if you allow yourself time to sort of sit and think, why is the watch this way? What are the compromises that got made? Why did they make the decisions that they made that ended up in this position, this price point, this specification? You will almost always find a reason why your original idea that it should be something else, if not completely overridden, can at least be kind of mollified a little bit. So what I would say is our ideas of what we think a watch should be are enormously powerful. The Tudor Black Bay Pro and the issues around its thickness show us that when we slow down and think about things and give brands and watches a chance, we can often find value even in a watch that we think should have been something else. I think the real lesson is we should do that for every watch and every brand, and that we should never forget one truism. Our guts have shit for brains, and going with a gut reaction is almost always wrong. That we should always slow down. In fact, I'll get rid of that. We must always slow down, think more carefully, get rid of our ideas of what a watch should be, appreciate it for what it is, and we will have so much more fun in this hobby.